Gonna start the doors today. I've got, I think, most of my pieces pulled out from the kit. There are some ABS trim strips. There are some aluminum strips. Of course, I've got the door. This is the right side door. And the first thing I need to do is take this inside trim strip. It's aluminum and it has some holes pre-drilled in it. And I need to set it so that it's flush along the bottom edge of the top tube of the door, all the way down. And then I need to set it to where it's flush with the front edge, about like that. And then I need to strike a line that carries this angle over here, and then strike a line here that carries that angle and snip it. That way it's exactly to shape for the cross, the top tube here of the door. Got it marked here, and then back here. I think to cut this, I'm just going to use my snips. Got that piece trimmed and cleaned up. I flipped the door over, so we're looking at the inside now, because I need to lay this back on here flush like it was. And then I need to transfer drill through these holes all the way down to from the rear to the front. And I'm probably going to use either some Cleco clamps or maybe some of my small little clamps to hold this in place, at least until I can get the first hole drilled here. And then I'll Cleco as I go. All right, I got all those holes drilled out. And next, now the manual said to do those to number 30s. It has pilot holes that are number 40 in the trim strip, and that's what I drilled it with, 40s. And the reason I didn't go to 30 is I think I'm gonna deviate from the plans here. Famous last words, right? And I'm gonna use, I have a bunch of these stainless 3/32 rivets that I think would be just fine for this. It's a smaller rivet head. Won't protrude as much. I don't really think it needs to be a 1/8" rivet for this. So I'm gonna go in and deburr these holes with my in and out deburring tool. Just looking at this here now, before I rivet this in place, I think what I'd like to do is put a thin bead of silicone between each of these holes all the way down, and then install my piece. That'll do a couple things. It'll seal it up, make it as airtight as possible and watertight, and also kind of help adhere it down to the door between the rivets. Got that all riveted up. Looks nice. I like that. Now what I gotta do is gotta flip the door over, and I need to use my Sharpie on the outside, draw a center line around the perimeter of the frame of the door. And we're gonna start getting ready to position the outside trim strips, which I believe are these parts here. Door trim, yeah, these are the door trim parts. So anyways, I'll get the door flipped over and get those marked out. Got all of the surrounding trim pieces clamped on here. Got the holes lined up with my center lines that I drew on the tubes. And the pieces don't quite fit the door exactly. You do kind of have to massage them into place. And you do kind of end up with these little buckling, but I suppose that when you get this all riveted, it'll pull it all down. I also have some of that going on here. There's a big one here. And when I push this one down, that one goes up. When I push that one down, that one goes up. But if I push them both down at the same time, it will flatten out. So I guess that's okay. It did say that this piece goes over this one, but it made no mention of the ordering of the parts here. I initially had this piece over this one and it just didn't look right at all. It definitely looks better having this one over it. My initial thinking was, well, I want this one over that because of the airflow. I don't want anything coming up in here and getting this. But like I said, it looked funny. Maybe I'll see if I can find some pictures of some other S-21s and see how they've done it. But I think now everything is all in place. It's okay for me now to go ahead and match drill and cleco this all the way around. Got everything match drilled and clecoed in place. And yeah, everything seems to have kind of flattened out once it's clecoed. This material, I believe it's ABS, is kind of flexible and it's forgiving, I guess you'd say, and it's got some ability to kind of move. I think what I need to do is trim this to match, and then also down here, this is off a little bit, and then this is off a little bit. I want to do that now because when I take all these pieces off, I'm going to be painting them, and I want them painted before I put the lexan on. I probably will go back and paint the doors after they're fully completed anyway, because I don't want the rivet heads to be, the natural aluminum finish. I do want those painted, but at least with painting everything beforehand, I really should only have to do the outsides. I won't have to come in and worry about doing the insides. So, but that means if I'm going to paint these, I need to trim these first, because otherwise, if I paint them and then trim them, then you're going to see the white plastic underneath. So, forgot to do that. But this is kind of weird because it kind of angles up right there. I really wish it was straight across the whole bottom. I think there's enough room here that I could probably strike a line up to this point and straighten it. Maybe what I'll do is fit this thing onto the fuselage now and just kind of see what I'm up against with the fit. Got the door on the fuselage temporarily, and I've taken my Sharpie and I've drawn a reference line on the fuselage skin to see how much overlap I'm getting. And in fact, it's kind of right at the rivets. So I could definitely trim this up about 1/8 of an inch, 3/32 of an inch. If I just removed that all the way down, I could get a nice straight line up here, and I still have plenty of overlap at the bottom. So I think I will mark that and trim it. Back here seems okay. If I just follow this line this way and this line here, that's no problem. Everything will be okay there. And I've got a pretty nice parallel line to the rivets here. So yeah, the door is pretty good fit into the fuselage opening. It sticks out just a little bit here, but I kind of think I want that because this is where the latch is gonna grab it, and it'll kind of hold everything else back there kind of tight, is my thought. I think I've seen somebody else kind of mention the same thing on a video. I forget which builder it was. Yeah, I got about a 1/2 inch right there, but it doesn't take much force. It's very little. So I can try to bend it a little bit more. I've kind of tweaked the door about as much as I care to go. So it's fine. I think this will be okay. Next, yeah, trim that bottom. Trim the ends there, get everything nice and straight lines. Just clamped a straight edge here along the bottom. I've come out about 3/32 there and about a heavy 1/8 here. Kind of split the difference a little bit rather than running it the full 3/30 or almost 3/16 across the whole bottom. I think that'll be okay. I don't think visibly it'll matter that it's just a little bit wider here. So I'll go ahead, I can take this off. Let's look at my line here. Yeah. Let's see, to do that, I'm trying to think of what's going to be the best tool for the job. Probably going to take it off and hit it on my bandsaw. Go a little bit light, and then I'll come in with a block, 80 grit or 100 grit block, and block sand it flat. All right, got that trimmed out just fine. I ended up not taking it off and having to use the bandsaw. What I ended up using was just my pneumatic angle grinder. And I just came in here and just did passes all the way down until I got the most of it off, and just came in here and blocked the rest. Did the same thing down here. So that's all good. I think, I got to match drill this hole here yet. I think there might be one down here too. There's one underneath there, I think. Anyways, I think I can pull these off now and prep, prime, and paint them. Change of plans. I'm not going to paint these yet because I'm still going to be working on this, getting the lexan fit, and that's just opportunity for them to kind of get nicked up. I really only need to paint them right before I rivet all this together. So that being the case, next step is to start fitting the lexan pieces. Got the lower lexan piece put in place. For the most part, I believe in the right position. I've got the aft edge and the lower edge flush with the door frame. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see, there's a little line here that goes all the way down. They've formed the lower edges of the lexan to be straight up against the tube, because this comes down at an angle. So that way you're not, having a gap in there when you're getting to riveting that. That was pretty smart of them. So yeah, I've got this placed here. There's a little notch that in the lexan that goes right at the corner, which, yep, that does line up. They do mention that. And it's a little heavy here, but that's fine. I can do a little bit of sanding on that if I need to. And then here, it overhangs quite a bit across the bow, but that's fine because I'm going to get back in there now from the backside with my Sharpie and mark where those tubes are so that we can remove the clear film only in that area on both sides of the lexan. And then when we put it back down, we'll be able to see all of the holes and the center lines. The center line we'll use to mark this where to trim the plastic, and then we'll be able to see the holes everywhere else. Now, one thing, like as an example here, we can more easily match drill that way. One thing I noticed is look how close this particular hole is to the edge of the tube, and that's just from where I laid out the pieces here. It's just kind of where that hole landed. Had I known it was gonna be that close, I could have cheated this piece, whichever piece it was, this one or this one, I could have cheated it over, but it's fine, it'll still rivet okay. So, okay, let me flip this thing over and mark out the tubes. I've got the tubes marked out here. Where I couldn't reach, I'll just continue these lines. And really the only purpose for this right now is just to peel back the protective covering just past that point and trim it off. It's clear protective masking on the back side, and then it's this white stuff on the front side. For a minute, I thought there was none on the back, and I had inked this up, and I'm like, oh, great. You're gonna see that, and there's really no way to clean it off, or maybe there is, but I also don't want to damage the lexan. Anyways, it's clear, so it's a non-issue. And then in order to do this you don't want to scratch your lexan, so I'll peel it back, and I just take a razor blade sideways and just slide it this way. And you don't want to cut this way into it, you'll score the lexan. So let me go ahead and get all this removed all the way around. I'll do the same thing on the top side, and actually, because this is clear, I feel like I should do the top side first, since I can see those lines, because once I peel that masking off, I'm going to lose those lines. So I'll do the top side first, and then I'll do the backside. Got the lower lexan back on the door frame. Got it clamped in position, running the lexan flush with the bottom for the most part. Again, it's a little heavy right here. It's fine. I can trim that if I need to, or sand it. And then it seems to follow the bow here pretty nicely. It doesn't want to stick down there very well. I might loosen this clamp and see if I can get that to set a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. When I drill and cleco this, it's gonna hold it in place. So there you go. And this stuff does scratch pretty easily. Almost just kind of touching it will put scratches in it, so you gotta be real careful when you're working on it. This is kind of a delicate operation. Okay, I believe the manual says that now I can transfer drill through all these holes and cleco it all together. That wasn't too terrible. Everything seemed to fit okay. Again, this is kind of weird here. I kind of had to force it down, but nothing's buckling that I can see. And we do have a nice tight contact all the way down. So what I want to do now is I want to mark where I need to trim this, just on the outside edge of the door frame, I believe. And then same thing here. And then here, I'm gonna mark the center line, and I'm gonna cut it just shy of that center line so that when the top piece comes on, they don't contact each other. So yeah, again, it's kind of a tedious process, but it's not difficult, it's just tedious. I've marked little hashes where I need to trim. Once I get this thing off, I'll strike a line on there. I've also marked where I need to trim it here. Now what I'm gonna do for this line here, because this isn't straight, there will be some kind of a curve to it. So it's not like I can mark the end here and the end here when it's flat, strike a line. I would almost certainly, I believe, well, it would end up above it or below it, depending on how this thing is bent. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a piece of tape. Actually, I saw Derek do that on his door build video. Take some masking tape, and I'll just put the edge here, and I'll just carefully follow this line all the way down. And then when I take it off, I'll just cut to that line, or maybe just shy of it a little bit. That'll do. While I had the tape out, I just figured, why not just mark that line as well? So, and back here. So I'll just follow the tape lines up here, across, follows my black center line pretty good. And then down here. And once I trim all that, then that piece will be cut to size. And next, I believe I'll have to start working on the top lexan piece, a very similar type of arrangement and process. I think the tool for the job might be my power shears, I think. I'm gonna try a little test cut on the outside of the tape here just to kind of see how it cuts. But I should be able to come in here and stay on the tape side of the line with the shears and come across here. Those generally do really good. That's what I used when I did the baggage closeout. Worked really well for that on the ABS. But let's test it out on this lexan and see how it works. You know, I don't like it. I think it's thin enough that scoring it and snapping it is definitely going to be the way to go here. I just don't like the cut quality. Does not seem to work as well on lexan as it did on ABS. So let me switch over to using a nice new razor blade, scoring it, and then snapping it. That's what I do with my RC car bodies from back in the day, and that always worked. So it should work on this. That does work. It's a little scary. When you get to snapping it, you're just hoping that nothing comes in and gives you a crack this way. It didn't. I went a little deeper on the score. I'm noticing was having a little bit of a trouble snapping it, so I just did about 3 different passes, got a little bit deeper each time, and then I was able to snap it, and it's a pretty clean break. Now I need to do this, and you can see here, actually, it's pretty prominent, the curve. So I'll just have to, I guess by hand, just very carefully come in here and score that. Got it trimmed. I gotta say, that was stressful. That was very stressful. I was so afraid that when it came time to snap, it was gonna crack in towards the inside of the material. It didn't. In fact, well, what I did, just to be sure, I ended up doing about 4 passes, and it felt like I went more than halfway. In fact, can I even see, if I look carefully, I went a little bit more than halfway on the scoring. And then I just bent it away from the score. So, you know, held this piece this way and that one that way. And it snapped. Very satisfying, actually, a little crack. Every time I would do it, I'd move a few inches, crack, 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 crack. And then I was able just to kind of shear it and lift the whole thing up, as you saw. I didn't like that at all. I've only got 3 more to do. But this method does seem to work. Really, it's a case of slow and steady wins the race. When you're scoring here, you just take your time, nice and slow, nice and accurate, and I don't know, seems to have worked okay. I think I'll test fit this. I won't do a full Cleco, but I'll just kind of test fit it up there and see what it looks like. Everything still fits good. This edge is nice and flush with the tube, and I'm right on the center line. I kind of wish I would have come back 32nd of an inch. So maybe what I'll do when I do the other one is I'll try to make that up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to try to sand this down. I could lay it flat on the table and I could probably take off that 32nd. It's a little high in a couple areas, but I still think it's going to be okay. Whew, okay. Boy, these doors, out of all the stuff I've done, these doors are right up there on my anxiety level. Just because I don't want to damage the lexan. I don't want to scratch it. I don't want to crack it. I want a good fit. Man, I'll be glad when these are done. I've got my top lexan piece clamped to the door frame there. And now I'll go ahead and flip this up, use my Sharpie and mark the door frame along the inside. All right, I got it clamped down here. Got the masking removed so I can see through. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna match drill into these holes here and Cleco that side. And then this side. And then what I'll do is find my center line here, and then they say to go 3-inch spacing on all your holes across here from the center. And I think I'll just do that. I don't know if I was supposed to drill the holes in the frame first and then match drill through, or if I'm supposed to just match drill or drill through the lexan into the door frame. I think that's what I'm going to do. I can see my center line there. So that's probably what I'll do, and that should work out okay. I'm going to drop this clip in here real quick. I'm actually working on the other door right now. This has been a couple weeks since the stuff you've been looking at was shot. And I have a tip, and I wish I would have done this on the door that you're watching being built right now. On this door, when it comes time to peel back the protective coating around the door frame, what I did first was I put some blue tape over the whole door except for just shy of where that goes. And then when I peel this back, I'm able to peel it right to the tape and cut it perfect line right around here. And what that's gonna do is just offer better protection for the lexan. It's only gonna reveal the lexan pretty much right at the steel tubes. And I'm gonna leave this on until everything's finally done, and I'm just gonna peel everything off all at once. So just a tip, I wish I would have done this on the door you're watching now, but that's what I'm doing on this door. All right, I got all these drilled and clecoed across the top. And now what I need to do is take my tape and come in and mark the center line of the bow. I'll also go ahead and use the tape for the edges, for the ends. And what I'm going to do on the tape on this one, because I was a little bit heavy on the lower piece, I'm going to come just a bit shy. That way I don't have those two contacting each other. Should be able to hopefully get that just right. All right, I've got my lexans back on. Everything's been clecoed in place, the trim surrounding, and I've checked the fit here with the plastics. They don't touch each other. They're kind of actually just touching. This extrusion piece, which I've already trimmed to length, front and rear. It's got a little bit of an angle here and here to follow that, and then there's a straight cut and an angle back to match this here. What I need to do now is I want to find the center of it, and then every 3 inches from there out towards each end gets a hole. I'll drill those. Then I can bring this up here, drill that first hole, cleco it, and then work my way back, drill and cleco through into the steel bow. And I think that'll be it for drilling, clecoing, and rough fitting of everything. At that point, I should be able to final drill everything to number 30, and then take it all apart, deburr everything, clean it up. Then I can paint all my pieces, and then I think do a final assembly at that point. Next, let me go ahead and get this all marked up and drilled. All right, I've got the bow piece drilled and clecoed. That went okay. I'm gonna work on the handle assembly now. I'm doing something a little different than the manual. I have some of these 3/8 inch stainless steel shafts that, believe it or not, I don't know how or why, but I have these at exactly the right length. I think it's 2 1/4, 3/8 OD, some project I was working on in the past. And I had them already, and I thought, well, rather than cutting the stock that they give you out of aluminum, why not use these shafts here? And they are perfect, almost press fit, more of like an interference fit on the parts here. Can I get it out? There we go. And then also for the spacer, they want you to cut some aluminum. I have these polyurethane, really hard polyurethane spacers, bushings, whatever they are, that are the exact right size. The OD is a little large. They're a 3/4 OD, but actually, when you put it on the shaft, the 3/4 OD is the same OD as the handle here, as well as on this part here. It's also 3/4. So I don't know, it's gonna be a perfect fit. So I'm gonna use a couple different parts that I have already I like the idea of a stainless shaft, a little bit stronger, and then with the polyurethane bushing, I don't know, a little less abrasive, a little more contact surface area, bearing surface area. So, looking at the manual here, this is kind of the layout. So I'm gonna go in and kind of test fit some of this and see how it works. One thing I'm noticing here, I want you to put some washers here for spacing, but you'll notice the washer's kind of being kicked out from this trim piece here. So what I think I might do is I'm gonna take a pencil, I'm gonna scribe around the shape of the OD of that washer, and I'm gonna see if I can carefully trim away this trim piece here so that it sits flat. That's the material I need to remove. I'm gonna try this with just an X-Acto blade, very carefully cutting that away. That was a little tricky, but I got it. Knowing what I know now, when I do the next door, it'd be easier with a Dremel and a sanding drum with that trim piece off. Just mark it and then cut a little indentation there, but this should allow those washers to sit flat. Perfect. Now when this goes on, I actually did a thick washer and then I put a thin one on top of it. And now when that goes on, I get perfect flatness and I get the clearance I need with the handle to clear the door here. Might could put another thin washer on there, or maybe just two thicks, just to kick this out a touch more. But yeah, on the next one, I'm definitely gonna trim this before I rivet it in place. In test fitting everything together, what I notice is my little bushing here, which is at the 3/8 inch thickness as specified in the plans, I believe it's a little bit too thick because the door doesn't quite close as tightly as I like once this part of the handle goes over the striker plate that fits on the upright tube. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this down on my lathe a little bit, probably, I don't know, maybe 60 thousandths or so. And then I can tune it with a thin washer or two if I wanna kind of make some final adjustments there. It basically would go like that. This would slip on, and then that would go against the door. And with that in mind, keeping this easily serviceable where I can make adjustments as I need later on, if I find I need to, I will put the dowel pin that connects the shaft to this handle. Then you're supposed to do the same thing here with a roll pin. But I think what I'm gonna do for this is I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna drill a 4mm hole on this side. I'm gonna tap it M4 on the other side. There's enough material there to catch enough threads. And what I'm gonna do is use one of these M4 bolts, which is partially threaded. And it turns out that if we imagine it going like so, I get a solid shank of the bolt until where it needs to thread in there, and I'll drill a very tightly toleranced hole in the shaft. That'll fit in there, and then I can remove this bolt, take off the handle, remove the whole assembly if I want to do some adjustments later. I think that's the way I'm going to go. First up, I want to go ahead and get this drilled out to put the roll pin in here. So I've just got this set up, already jigged it up. I'm going to drill, they say to drill from either side, but I feel like because I'm on the drill press here and I know that my quill is perpendicular in both axes to the table, I should be able to just go ahead and do a straight through drill and catch the other side alignment pretty much dead on. All right, so now I'm going to step up to the number 30 all the way through. Yep, that's going to work. I'm going to get in there and do some deburring, clean that up. I think I'm also going to take the shaft on my lathe and I'm going to put just a slight chamfer on the inside edge there on the ID because it's a little sharp. So I'll get this cleaned up and then we can pin it. All right, I figured my Nipex, my big old Nipex pliers, were going to be a great tool to press this in. So I've got it just started there. And if if I give it a squeeze, yeah, that's going to go through. I'll have to change the jaws to the next setting down and finish the squeeze. Cool, that was easy. All right, I've got a basic fit up here now, and I was thinking, in order for my plan to work, where I can take off the handle here and adjust where the interior handle hits the striker plate, that distance, I need to have a stack up of washers that's the same. So in other words, I might have a total of, say, 2 thick washers and like 3 or 4 thins. And I would just adjust whether or not those go on the inside or the outside to move the relative position of the whole handle assembly in or out. Because once I drill the hole and pin the handle to the shaft, I don't have any more movement there, but I can move the whole assembly relative to the door with shims, if that makes any sense. So before I go any further, I don't want to start setting that and figuring out what that is until I've got my door trim trimmed where it needs to be. So I need to look at the manual and see. I want to say this ends up coming just on this side of the boot cowl. So I'll figure out what that is and I can get this trimmed. Then I can see where the door is going to sit. And then I can determine how I want to fit that handle assembly together. But basically, that's how I'm going to do that. So I've looked at the manual, and yeah, there is supposed to be a nice little gap here between the boot cowl and the trim strip. And they didn't mention anything, but presumably there might be some trimming up here as the windshield trim pieces and windshield goes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically say the doors are done for now. I don't want to do anything more on the doors until I get the windshield in place. And I really do see how all this is going to fit together, and I can do all this trimming at that time. Once I do that, then I can go ahead and finish the latch assembly. Latch assembly is pretty much already done. I've got it mostly sort of functional. It's just kind of where is that lateral distance that it needs to finally sit at? I'm not going to know until I trim. I don't want to trim until I have the windshield. So that's where I'm at with that. Now, you may have noticed I have the bow strip, the aluminum channel or extrusion removed from this door right now. I took it off, and I like the idea of not using the VHB tape to hold this together. I'm going to use Sikaflex polyurethane adhesive. I'd heard a story, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'd heard a story of somebody's upper or lower window coming loose and blowing out because there's only about a 3/16 inch overlap there over the bow. Now the VHB tape is supposed to, tightly hold those together when it gets riveted. It's probably fine. Maybe that person didn't have that. Maybe that story isn't even true. I don't know. But I like the idea of something a little more substantial, and I'm going to use polyurethane Sikaflex. So I removed the bow strip, and I got the Sikaflex coming in today. I'm going to apply a nice thin bead here over it, lay that strip down, re-rivet it, and then I know I'm going to be good. So that's why that bow is not on here at the moment. And then you may also have noticed this strip here. This is something different than when I assembled the doors. This was a bit of an afterthought. I had seen it was either a factory build or a builder assist S-21 recently, and I was looking at the pictures I had taken of it because I was kind of looking at how they did their doors, and I noticed that this strip was on there. Well, this strip is the same strip that they have on the inside, that first strip that you put on when you're building the doors. And I really like that they put the same strip on the outside. Normally, if you recall, you're just riveting with the Avex rivets, the lexan to the door frame. And it kind of makes the lexan do like these little weird ripples, and it just doesn't look nearly as clean. I like the idea of this. So I bought 2 extra trim strips from RANS. They shipped them out, and I just sandwiched them in between the door and these vertical trim strips, cut them to size, and basically I still have a few rivets I need to put in yet, but you can see what that does is it keeps that lexan from doing that ripply thing between the rivets. It keeps it a nice, smooth, clean, straight look. Plus, when it gets all painted, I think it's just going to it's just going to match more nicely. You're going to have that trim that goes all the way around the door. I think they should do this on the kits. This might be just something they kind of do when they're doing their factory builds, just grabbing a couple of those trim strips, but it's such a great idea and it looks so good. I think they ought to just do that on all their kits. Maybe they will in the future, who knows? But if your kit doesn't have that, you're building S-21, you get to your doors, before you do anything, call them up and ask them. They can send you a couple of those trim strips. They were super cheap, and they got to me within a couple days. Well worth doing. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for the door episode. Thanks for watching.